Hello everybody and welcome to the very first video in this podcast series. It's a little bit different today. I'm not going to be doing comedy, but what I will be doing instead is I'll be answering some really important viewer questions. Just before I get started, if you have a question that you'd like to submit for the podcast, then do check out the description box below for full details on how you can do that. So today's question is from Jason. Hello Jason. Jason writes, "Dear Nelly, why didn't I leave sooner? I knew it in my bones and I look back on every time I should have. Why didn't I?" So I want to try to shed some light on this today from my own human experience and also taking into account some of the psychological, as I'm super into that, but I also consider myself quite a spiritual detective. And I want to cover multiple angles, not just the psychological, because to me, that's not enough. Saying that, knowing the psychology can be hugely helpful. And I'm no professor, but I know somebody that is, and that's Sam Vaknin. And he's got an amazing YouTube channel where you can learn everything that you need to know about the psychology of narcissism. So if you do want a deeper dive into the psychology, then please do check out Sam's channel. So the question, why didn't I leave sooner? Why did I ignore my gut feeling? Right? This question, it creates so much confusion because survivors find it really hard to find logical reasons why they stayed for as long as they did. And not only that, but so many people end up blaming themselves and feeling really frustrated and angry for all the things that they did or that they didn't do. Although it is really important after a narcissistically abusive relationship to do self-reflection and become conscious, of course, of anything within you that needs to be addressed, I really like to say that it's equally as important not to beat yourself up because it actually was not your fault. Narcissists, they run a lot of games on people and they're highly deceptive, they're highly manipulative, and they use a lot of tactics that disguise their true intent. They confuse people, they shift blame onto others, and until you're actually trained to see the common things they all do, you won't really have a clue what's happening to you. But here's the thing, as Jason said, your body will know and try to signal to you a lot sooner than your mind will understand. Jason said that he had an inner knowing that it wasn't right. He said he could feel it in his bones. Consciously, he didn't know what he was going through. He didn't know that he was going through narcissistic abuse with a narcissist, but a higher intelligence within him was making him aware that there was a danger. Now, you can call this your gut feeling or your intuition, and where this comes from, you can either look at it as a primal level survival instinct, almost on an animal level, or you can look at it as a spiritual connection and guidance from a deeper system within you. Or you can look at it as both, or neither. But the fact is, we all do have it. Sometimes we disconnect from it, or we choose to ignore it, because sometimes we override it when we bring in our brains. I think we tend to trust our logical minds a lot more than our bodily instincts, as they don't always make sense. If you think about it, there may be someone that appears in your life and they seem like the sweetest and kindest person, but for some reason your gut feeling and intuition's going off when you're around them. And in those moments, people really doubt themselves and their judgment. Because if you think logically, there's a sweet person in front of you. So what's the danger? Well, I think that anybody that's been through narcissistic abuse, we all know, now having experienced a covert narcissist, that evil people with evil intent can show up with the most perfectly polished masks. They're not hiding in the bushes at night with a knife. They're in your house. They're in your car. They're at work with you. They're in your bed. They are coexisting with us and they look like us. And so how would we actually know? I think when dealing with a narcissist, we can all take away that we may well have had red flags and intuitive warnings that we didn't pay attention to. And moving on from it, we can each learn to trust our instincts a lot more, especially when it comes to relationships with people. So I want to look at now what narcissists do in their intimate relationships and the reasons why people have such a hard time leaving. And honestly, if I miss anything that you feel is really important to add, then by all means do comment below, because we're all here to help each other at the end of the day. So let's quickly just distinguish the needs and desires for a healthy person entering a relationship and the motivation of a narcissist entering a relationship, because the two are very, very different. Now, a healthy person gets into a relationship for what reasons? Well, they desire love, connection, intimacy. A narcissist isn't interested in those things. They're actually incapable of all of them. So their motivation for a relationship and intimate partner is very different from everyone else. Although, of course, at the start, they're going to trick you into believing that they want the same as you. They're not going to tell you that they're going to feed off of your energy. They're not going to tell you that they're going to drain your life force and all of your resources. They won't admit that they're going to use and abuse you for all of your services and conveniences. They can't reveal the truth of who they are up front. Why? Because nobody would choose to get involved with them. With them instead, they're going to deceive you into believing that you've met your soulmate, and they'll show up as literally everything that you've ever desired, and chances are they've really studied you well enough to know exactly what lies to promise you. And how it all starts is with the love bomb. This initial stage of idealization where the narcissist is honestly pumping out so much attention and adoration. And if it's a romantic relationship, they usually can't keep their hands off of you. Yeah, it's super intense, but for many, it's also super alluring, as more than likely you've never ever experienced that kind of level of attention and adoration ever before. And it's really easy to mistake it for passion and love and lust, and all the chemicals that are released in that period are highly addictive. Now, the love bomb is designed to get you on the narcissist's hook, right? It's designed to dissolve all boundaries between you and them. And at that point, you think that they love you. And so you think that you can trust them. You drop your guard, you let down the drawbridge, and you allow the enemy to enter your gate. Narcissists, they won't allow partners to have boundaries, and this is a massive one. If you have a boundary, you're quickly going to understand that if you want a relationship with them, your boundaries, they won't be respected, and they'll always be considered as a terrible thing. So because you don't know that they're a narcissist, you will make adjustments to go against yourself in order to appease them. Because remember, at this point, as I said, you don't know that they're a narcissist. How can anybody that shows you so much love be against you? That's what you think anyway. So they've lured you in to a false sense of trusting them. So with that super intense love bomb and that chemical explosion and feel-good high that's literally taken you over, combined with believing that you've met your soulmate and the love of your life, and you think that this person also wants the best for you, the stage for the abuse has already been set. It's really hard, as I've seen in victims of abuse, to let go of that memory of the person that they believed that they fell in love with. It's really hard to get your head around that that wasn't the real them. It's excruciatingly painful. I remember the idealization phase and having a desire to return to that moment is also what makes a person stay with a narcissist for longer. What compounds this is when the narcissist starts revealing more and more of their true self behind closed doors and gets more and more abusive over time, we can often think it's something to do with us. To others that don't really know them, they can seem kind, they can seem empathic, and occasionally they can even do nice things. Now, the motivation for those nice things is usually to preserve their image, but in any case, it can make someone feel like perhaps they're to blame. Why the narcissist acts different with them, must be me, right? It's not them. Plus the fact that no one else believes that they're a bad person, so you can feel like it's obviously something to do with you. Another reason for staying is when an authentic person, and narcissist often picks authentic people. When they love somebody deeply, they don't easily give up on what they perceive as love. Remember also, you didn't know at that point the cycles of narcissistic abuse, how it starts with idealization and then moves to devaluation and then finally discard. Until you actually know what a narcissist is and what a narcissistic relationship looks like, then most people will naturally, honestly believe that it's something that they're doing wrong. And then they try harder to get back to that memory of what once was, or so you believed. I'd say all narcissists are predators, some are more than others, but they know what they want to extract from you, and they know how to go about getting it. So you're going to willingly hand it over to them, and it will seem like your idea. So the wolf disguises itself as a sheep, as a lamb actually. They appear vulnerable most of the time, and as victims. So not only does this camouflage their true nature and intent, but it also triggers in you a massive desire to protect them. It triggers maternal and paternal instincts, and this is not to be underestimated, as it's a very powerful motivator. And it's another reason why people stay. Now in psychology, again, check out Sam Vaknin's channel for more information if you want a deeper dive into it. The narcissist actually desires to make you their mother. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, and don't be offended by this if you are a man. The point is, the narcissist never achieved separation in their childhood from their real mothers. And so they're in this compulsive repetition cycle that involves you and all of their intimate partners. They make you their mother so that they can attempt to separate from you and do what they couldn't do in childhood. But what they also do is they try to mother you. So psychologically and energetically, it all becomes toxically enmeshed. And I dare say you almost had a weird feeling within you that you couldn't leave the narcissist because they needed you beyond any human adult has ever needed you before. Again, before you actually have this information, the connection can feel like it's really deep and familiar. You feel that you can't abandon them even if you tried. And like I said, this can feel like a strong romantic love. It's not. It's a trauma bond that's been created between you as a byproduct of all the things that a narcissist does. They need you because they are fully codependent and they're terrified of abandonment. And maybe they also convince you to feel like you need them as they've trained you to feel that way. Which leads me on to the next big reason why people do stay, and that's codependency. Perhaps you have been codependent and it stems from your childhood, or maybe you became codependent in the toxic relationship with the narcissist because narcissists, they don't tolerate any boundaries from their partners. As far as they're concerned, they want what they want and they're going to get it and you're going to give it to them or else. So they insist on your codependency. They need it for control of you. If you're independent, it just won't work. So they'll train you over time to how they want and they need you to be. You can look at these psychological terms that I'm going to give you, like entraining and brainwashing. And it's starting to be understood now that actually narcissists do to victims exactly what cults do. I think Richard Grannon, he wrote a book about the narcissistic relationship being like a cult of one. So actually cult psychology really relates to narcissistically abusive relationships. And I think we're all aware of how stuck people become in cults and how difficult it is to get out. And it's the same true for narcissistic relationships. Another really important reason why I believe people find it hard to leave is the very fact that they are so confused. And not only confused, they're exhausted. Life with a narcissist is never peaceful. And what is true love? True love brings peace. It brings clarity and it brings a feeling of safety, but you're not going to get any of that in a narcissistic relationship. They're going to give you big quantities of drama every single day. Your nervous system is going to be continuously in a state of overstimulation, in fight or flight. You're never safe. You're always on red alert. Not only does that exhaust you, but it keeps you from your center and it disconnects you from that intuition that I spoke about earlier, from that inner voice and from the gut feeling. You have no chance to connect with it. You are always like this with a narcissist. That's exactly how they need you to be. They can't have you connecting with yourself. And then add on top of that all of the gaslighting that narcissists do alongside bringing you into their shared fantasy. You go into a narcissistic brain fog. You're confused, you're exhausted, and you've lost complete touch with reality because to be with a narcissist, you have to give that up. As long as you're around that narcissist, you'll forever be under their influence and inside that narcissistic fog. That's why it is so important for them to isolate you, to ensure that you can't escape from them. They remain in control. They remain having that influence over you. What they do with all of these tactics is trauma bond you, like I said, and the abuse you get from them, whether it is emotional, mental, or even physical, it communicates to you that it's because of you. It's not them, it's you. An example of that, they might say after they've had a massive rage fit and they've caused you a great deal of suffering, if I didn't love you so much, you wouldn't be able to make me so angry. You see, narcissists, they always shift responsibility for their abuse back to you. And many people can believe that it's their fault. And they stick around then trying to change it, hoping that the relationship will improve, the narcissist will change, everything's going to get back to how it was at the start. Victims of abuse also experience cognitive dissonance. So when the narcissist is incredibly abusive, somehow the mind of the victim remembers the good times. Or, worse still, makes excuses for why they're getting abuse. In any case, they keep on returning to the happier memories, even if they were few and far between. Finally, what I'd like to say is narcissists are very parasitic and vampiric. That's how they operate. There are certain parasites that can get into a host and take over their cognitive functions and make the host work for the parasite's desires. Does that sound familiar? Because narcissistic relationships are just like that. Narcissists are always needing to be attached to a host body. They can't survive without one because they always need supply. As much as a vampire needs to feed off of blood, narcissists, they steal your energy. They covertly coerce you into giving it to them. And whilst the parasite is controlling you through mind control and through the nervous system, the vampiric aspect of the narcissist takes your energy from you and redirects everything towards them and their supply needs. And you have absolutely no idea how much you're being controlled from the inside, because that narcissist has got inside your body and brain and they've taken control over you with actually an aim to destroy you. They want you completely gone and they want to fill the shell that was once you with them. That's why in one of my videos that I'll link to at the end of this, I show how the love bomb actually leads to the narcissist handing you a contract for your mind, body, and soul. It might sound weird to people, but they do want full ownership of you down to the essence of your spirit, because they want your life force and energy completely in servitude to them. By coming on so strong to you at the very start in the idealization phase, it broke down your boundaries. You know, they literally invaded you, almost like a war situation where you're under siege. They've come in, they knock everything down, because at that point you think that they want to merge with you and it all seems very romantic, but you don't actually understand what the covert motivation is for that process. But the boundary issue is a massive one, because when we don't have boundaries, we give them access to us on a deep level, which is how they then get control. I think that many victims of narcissistic abuse understand at the end that it's a spiritual battle for survival. Like my friend Paula over at NarcCon actually describes, in the end, you have to raise your spiritual sword to them and cut that connection and literally tell them back up and no way. I'm not going to give you what you want from me, because that's not love, and love would never ask for my destruction. Narcissists, they love supply that's high in empathy, that's very loving, that's loyal. You know, they go for the best individuals. They go for people that would literally walk to the ends of the earth for love. But they also love to prey upon people with strongholds of low self-esteem and feelings of unworthiness, because the narcissist wants to make everybody their doormat. And if you have low self-esteem and you do look for validation through others, then you'll often be more inclined towards taking their abuse for longer periods. Plus, narcissistic abuse will break you down over prolonged exposure, and it eats away at your self-esteem. So if this was an issue before your narcissistic relationship, then the narcissist will really amplify this wound within you. But for anybody, these relationships with narcissists, they're extremely difficult to leave, and it often takes multiple attempts to break those chains and those bonds, and people go back due to their trauma bond and not having the information about NPD, just to find out that the abuse gets much worse the second time round, or the third time, or even the fourth time. These narcissistic relationships, so psychologists actually say, are worse than heroin to quit. So if you have got out of a narcissistic relationship, just know how incredibly strong you are to have made that move, and recognize that in doing that action, you declared to yourself and also to the universe at large that you are worthy of so much more than that. I think from all of the exhaustion and confusion and weakness that people get broken down to inside these relationships, there eventually can come this unknown power from the deepest part of you, and it can give you the spiritual, oomph, power to get out. I've seen that even when people don't feel humanly, physically able, strong enough to walk out, something kicks in and takes the will. Whether you want to see that as a survival instinct within you or a spiritual power, or even both, is entirely up to you. But the process in getting to that stage of having enough power to leave can take time, because at first, number one, you don't want to give up on your addiction to the narcissist, on what you perceive at the time as love. And then when your life is inevitably in jeopardy, you're pushed to reevaluate the situation and your choices. There comes a moment where you have to choose life, and that means loving yourself, because I think you become aware that the narcissist, given half the chance, will destroy you, and they won't even care about it. And when you see that lack of care for yourself, I think people wake up that they have to take care of themselves, and they are with somebody basically that's a danger to their health, and not only health but life. I hope, Jason, that this has answered your question, or at least given some food for thought. These discussions are incredibly important, so please do keep your questions coming. And if anything has been raised by the subjects in today's video, then please do comment below. If you have benefited from today's video, then please do like, subscribe, and share. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.